I think if you get into the right circles and you're in the right situation, there is a sense of we're all in this together. And I think every time I have interacted with different international students who were either UWC or Chinese or even any, or just a normal international student, it has been mostly through food or talking about food, because we all hate Rastel.
Even if they have, the rice is not as good as the one back home in China. And also for the noodle, it's the same. But the pasta here is fine.
You can technically get most stuff at King's Supers, but I've noticed a big difference between King's Super Spices and what you'd get at an Indian store with like imported Indian spices. They look different, they taste different. So I started going, and it's much cheaper to buy them at Indian stores, honestly, as well.
The dish that holds a lot of like culture meaning to me is kind of like Cantonese, like kind of like dim sum, like little, those kind of like dishes.
Mapo tofu. Yeah, it's the spicy tofu because it is originally from Sichuan, China, and my grandfather is from Sichuan, China, so.
My favorite is Sindhi biryani. You start with tomatoes and onions, you fry them up, you add the chicken and add a lot of masalas into it, so spices. Please steam it, add a layer of rice, layer of that concoction you made in your pot, then another layer of rice, and then you sort of steam it. But yeah, this is something we do. Sabur's gonna help me, he's another Pakistani.
Hey guys.
I have one other friend over here who cooks with me, so every time I invite him and we try to make something. My mother tells me every time, I'm not really sure if it works, but I'll trust her. Is you just add a little bit of chickpea flour and just the whole thing sort of holds much better. And then every time the cooking session devolves into a nostalgia session where we talk about when we had this thing or what it associates with, and it turns into jokes and things like that. And I think for me, it's become sort of a trip down memory lane. It's become therapeutic. That's why I enjoy cooking now. That's why I enjoy cooking Pakistani food especially. And then this is something that's like become such a common household thing. It's this brand called Shan, and they have a mix of spices. So you can create the chapli kebab spices on its own as well. But it's just so much cheaper and simpler to just buy them in a pre-packaged form. And these are the imported ones that I actually got from an Indian store over here.
Like, cause my parents always like cooked for me.
No, I don't cook.
No, I couldn't make ice.
I'm a horrible cook. I'm not gonna cook.
But when I came here was when I really started cooking, when I sort of fell in love with cooking, and now I cook every 3-4 days in my apartment.
None of us know how to cook. I kind of like realized that when I went abroad, like people, especially from Asia, they really care about, or they really miss the food that I used to have. So I think yes, it's like really, really like strong, you know, part of their culture and part of their like memory when they like grow up. And also, obviously, I'm gonna miss every single like Spring Festival because we're at Block 5 here. There's no like Spring Festival break. I can't go home. And I do miss that. I used to like have dinner and just like with my family, and here just like with friends. I don't know, the role kind of changed, you know. Yeah, it's not like you go back to home and you share with your family.
What the most confusing thing for me in America was how food is so individualistic. I think when I really started thinking about it, for me, it became a difference between communal cultures and individualistic cultures. And I'm not saying which one is better or worse. There are pros and cons to both of them. But I grew up in a communal culture. I didn't know it was called the family style when you eat together, because we didn't have a different word for it. We just thought that's how you eat. And for me, food is always a reflection of that. I've always believed that food sort of reflects a culture.
Cantonese food is so fun because they always have like really small serving and everyone like share. It's kind of like dessert, so yeah, it's pretty popular.
We always eat together. Whenever you go to Pakistan and if you order something, you'll get a giant dish of it. Whenever people ask me what culture shock you experienced in America, they expect me to say something like, oh, I saw buildings and lights, and no, we had all of that.
I have no idea how to like eat bagel when I first got here because I never had bagel before. I saw you like microwave them, but like no, you have to put it in like a toaster.
Once some guy asked me if I've ever seen Pizza Hut, and that was a really interesting question to me. Globalization exists.
It's like so weird because I went back to my home for the winter break, and my boyfriend and I would like try to like find a perfect place for like the Mexican food. I know I never eat like Mexican food before.
In Pakistan, you will find Chinese restaurants and European restaurants and all these things, but they're not really that ethnicity. It's somebody making that dish, but with a very South Asian touch to it.
We're just like, no, this taco is not good enough.
So it more or less tastes like South Asian food. In America, I would say there is a diversity of food, especially if you're in the right place. And when I came to America and actually went to more authentic restaurants was when I was like, oh, there's an entire world out there.
But you can still find Chinese food like in downtown. And then, yeah, there's pretty much, if you really want Chinese food, you can still get it.
I saw so many different restaurants and so many different places you could eat, and they all felt like they had more than... what I'm trying to say is it's not like they were Americanizing them. A lot of these restaurants in America, I think, have kept their ethnicities, especially when they're run by Asian Americans or African Americans or people who are originally from that country or that area. I think it keeps a lot of its soul. So these are tester ones. We'll sort of see if there's anything wrong. And you're gonna think I'm a little crazy for this, but I think that's when people are the most receptive, and that's why food being communal and why I always make my food communal is so important to me. I think people are the most receptive, open, and warm to each other when we're sharing a meal together. I think there's no real bigger way to say it or put it out there.